Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, it's Clayton, and I just got back from seeing Patriots Day, directed by Peter Berg and starring Mark Wahlberg, John Goodman, J.K. Simmons, and Michelle Monaghan. Now, this film is about the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings, and the film centers around Mark Wahlberg's character, police Sergeant Tommy Saunders, as he goes into an investigation regarding the Boston Marathon bombings alongside Police Commissioner Ed Davis, played by John Goodman, and another police officer played by J.K. Simmons, and a bunch of other characters based on the real life Boston Marathon bombings and the real policemen who investigated during that time in order to find and apprehend the people responsible for the tragic incident. That's pretty much all I can say about the story without spoiling anything. But if you've seen the news reports regarding the Boston Marathon bombings, you're probably going to find out where the story is going to go. Because one of the strengths about this film is that it does accurately go through the Boston Marathon bombing and the aftermath through it pretty much word for word and pretty much event to event. It recreates all the events pretty darn well, which unfortunately makes one of its decisions in the plot structure a little confusing, but I'll get to that when I get to the negatives. Another positive of this film is that the acting is generally excellent throughout. Of course, when you watch a film with John Goodman, J.K. Simmons, and Mark Wahlberg, you know all of them are going to give standout performances, and it's clear the director Peter Berg really does understand how to get the right actors, the right emotions out of the actors at any given time. Heck, I think this is one of the more emotional movies that Mark Wahlberg's been a part of. And another good thing about the film is that despite the fact that it's naturally a very heavy drama with a lot of heartbreaking sequences, there's still some situational comedy thrown throughout that doesn't exactly ease up the tension, but it does keep it from being just a long tragic film throughout. Because even though the film is 2 hours and 10 minutes long, it does not feel that long. Which actually surprised me when the film got to the ending sequence. The last positive I'll say about this film is the fact that I was worried at the beginning that even though Mark Wahlberg's the main character, there are tons of different characters who are thrown throughout the film, which are basically basically documents every single person who had a major role to play during the aftermath and the investigation of the Boston Marathon bombings. I was worried that the film would go out of focus as it wouldn't know which characters to focus on. Thankfully, no one feels left out, and every person manages to get a decent amount of screen time and a decent amount of time to wrap up their stories and to recreate everything that happened during the Boston Marathon bombings, even parts that I personally had no knowledge of. It's true that a couple of actors, Michelle Monaghan in particular, feel underutilized, but considering this film had so many characters to follow and so many story arcs to wrap up, I understand if some actors get the short end of the stick. When it comes to the negatives, while the script is generally good throughout, I did feel that there was an overuse of the F word. Now, I'm not some kind of guy who thinks that foul language ruins everything. Heck, I think the F word, if used effectively, can be a great way it can be a great word for your script, but it's used so often and so casually to the point where I felt like it was just lazy throughout. Where in the opening sequence alone, every third word that comes out of Mark Wahlberg is the F word. I just think if they toned it down a bit, it would have been a much better script. Also, despite the fact that a lot of the actors are obviously based on the real life people that the Boston Marathon bombings is about, heck, there's even interviews in the film and footage of the real life Boston Marathon bombings which show the people that these actors are portraying. Mark Wahlberg's character is someone who is completely made up for this film. As Tommy Saunders apparently is not based on an actual police officer of the Boston Police, but he's a complete work of fiction in this movie. So, I understand that some people might find it unbelievably offensive for that to be the case, But for me, it just felt like a decision that felt wrong. It felt like it shouldn't have been there. And it felt like if Mark Wahlberg actually was actually based on someone who was an actual police officer at the event, this controversy that's been going on about the film wouldn't have happened. But to me, it doesn't ruin the film entirely. The film's still well acted, it's well told, and it does have a powerful message about how a community needs to stay together during a tragedy. That the Boston Strong actually has a lot of meaning. This was their city, and they weren't going to allow people to take away their community. So, overall, Patriots Day isn't the best film that Peter Berg has directed. I think Deepwater Horizon and Lone Survivor are a bit better than this, but it's still a well-told drama that has a strong message, and it's another good film to add to the filmography of both Berg and Mark Wahlberg. I don't think it deserves to be one of the top 10 films of the year, but it's good to watch if you want to see an inspirational drama. I give Patriots Day an 8 out of 10. See you next time.